set up you guys. I gotta be very careful about you guys. You know all about me, do a lot of research. But first of all, I'd like to say good afternoon. I think I had a great evening last night meeting some of you guys. I'm just amazed how you looked last night. And when I came in the door, I thought I was in the wrong place when I saw you guys without your sweaters, you know. So, you know, I had to think about what should I say, what should I talk about today, and a lot of things started working in my mind what happened last night, and I had one guy ask me a question, and I says, what kind of research do you do? He says, well, I research brothers. I said, brothers? He says, yes, I want to know about your brother Flo. So all of a sudden, thinking that, he says, well, tell me, how come, is your brother, how come he didn't make the NHL? He stayed in the minor league. Boy, I had to think about that. You know, you can't run down your brother. He's bigger than me. Anyway, I explained to him that how I played, what my thought process was, and after 5 minutes he realized that my brother wasn't as smart as me. That's why I didn't make it. Last night I listened to a couple speaker. Geez, I was just impressed on how Larry went on. It was hot in there, wasn't it? But you know what amazed me is when I started to play, I mean, I didn't realize that there was so much organization in the back of this hockey, or the front of hockey, because all I did, Rudy Pills came to our house in Fort Erie. I had moved to, I don't know, I guess you guys, if you buy the book, you'll find out where I come from. But when I was 13, my dad moved the family to Fort Erie, and I started playing junior B hockey in Niagara Falls. Anyway, Rudy Pillis came over and talked to my dad, and all of a sudden my dad says, hey, I think you got to go to St. Catherine's. This Rudy Pilote is a good French-Canadian guy, he'll coach you. But we all know that Rudy was a Polish and he had to change his name, you know. But anyway, when, so I got there, and the only thing I knew, Larry talked about a lot of rules and regulations. When I played, first thing I signed was a piece of paper, I don't know what it was, A form or C form, and all of a sudden I belonged to the Buffalo Bison and St. Catherine. But Larry touched on our friend Eagleson, didn't he? And he didn't seem to be too favorable of him. And I got to tell you, when I first met our friend Mr. Eagleson was, I think, my last year in Chicago, second to last year in Chicago. We were playing in Toronto, and he met me after the game, and he said, look, I want to talk to you. So I got in the cab with him. We were taking the train back to Chicago. And we started talking about forming the union, or the association. At first I didn't just call it a union, then it went on to the association. And I was all for it, and got back to Chicago. We talked to the boys, and we all had to put up $100. I guess Ted Lindsay was involved in that, and I guess all the older fellas. And we were all set to go, except there was one club that reneged on us, and it was the Detroit Red Wings. And I remember playing against them, and it's amazing. There was 2 or 3 players, especially one, Red Kelly. I had the feeling that they never joined us. I'm kind of a union guy. My dad was a union guy, but I'm not really a full union guy. I'm for the organization too. But it went on from there. But one of the things about Eagleson, he did get the players together. That's for sure. But one thing that happened to me, I probably felt like Larry a couple times, is when the shit hit the fan, you recall, and he got called, and we were in Toronto, and everybody knew about what he had done, but he was still in the Hockey Hall of Fame then. And to him, there was no shame to whatever he's ever done. And I remember coming down the stairway there, and came right over to me and embraced me as if nothing had happened. And I felt so little, I didn't know what to say to him. But that was the kind of guy he was. And I don't want to go any further than that, but I got to tell you one thing. What he did that almost screwed us out of about, I hate to quote, but millions of dollars. He was the president of the Conservative Association, the Conservative Party. And our chapter, our NHL pension chapter, the way he tried to change it and the way we won our lawsuit was that he tried to change a couple words. And the words were, all of the surplus fund of the NHL pension belonged to the participant. And he tried to change that so there was, that he could get all the surplus of the pension and the NHL owners would get that. And when we went to court and went over millions of dollars, matter of fact, I ended up with over $100,000 of surplus when we won the suit, which was pretty nice. So that was a key word that he tried to change, so that was the kind of guy he was. Now let's get back to maybe Mike Dubo. Mike, great guy, great friend here, you guys. You don't know how much he's done for this community. Play golf with Mike. He used to pick me up, we just lived down the road, and I kept lying to him about my age. When he found out, he was so upset. But anyway, Mike played with Bobby Orr, had some great starting, and from what I gathered, Bobby was kind of a shy fella, very shy. I heard that when he was probably 14, 15, his dad would drive him halfway down to Coldwater. Somebody would pick him up, take him to Oshawa, then somebody would bring him back, and his father would pick him up in Oshawa. So I talked to the gentleman. I said, where would you sit Bobby? I mean, in the car. He said, Bobby would just sit in the back, never said a word. I think Bobby was a shy fella all these years. But Bobby got to play with Bobby Orr. But I guess I got to play with a few guys. Name a few. Bobby Hall, Makita, Glenn Hall, let's not forget that. And I think if you get to know these guys when they're young, I remember meeting Bobby before he played junior hockey with St. Catharines. He played with my brother in golf. And he came down to our house. I was still single then. I was playing with Buffalo. And full bush of blonde hair, probably about 190 pounds then. What a guy. I remember the first practice he had when he made the club in training camp. We played against New York. He got 2 goals. He had played football the day before. He was going to high school. That was the end of his junior A career. He came to Chicago. He used to come to my house. My wife and I would fed him when he was single in Chicago. I had great times with him. Him and I would sit always close next to each other in the dressing room. Bobby always backed me up. Loved to get my pass. So much so, I remember in the dressing room a few times, I was out in the power play, and of course I played on the right side, and I used to get a lot of assists from Bobby. I used to get the other one from Makita. But anyway, we're back in the dressing room, and I guess Makita was getting upset because I wasn't passing the puck to him as much. Anyway, Makita said to me, hey, Pilote, he used to call me Pilote, you call me Pierre. He says, hey, Pilote, he says, there's a right side to this ring. When are you going to start passing to the right side? Bobby would be sitting beside me, just laughing like hell. And I wouldn't say nothing. Next game, again, says the same thing. And the guys that want to look at it say it, and he's talking, yapping at me. So he says, hey, Pilote, when are you going to start passing to the right side? There's a right side to this one. Finally, I says, hey, Nikita, when you get me as many assists as Bobby, I'll pass to you. There's a lot of story that I could talk about. A lot of these stories in the book. So today, in front of you guys, you talked about trying to preserve stories. Well, my book couldn't have been possible with two guys, Waxy Gregoire and David Dupee. All I did was talk, but they had to put the book together. And I think I want to thank them personally right here. And I think they should get a big hand of applause for doing such a good book. A little story maybe. I was at a banquet one time, and it was for the end of the major junior A. We're at the Hockey Hall of Fame, and nowadays, the professional, they got 5 coaches, 5 trainers, 5 this. The junior A, major junior A have the same thing. I mean, they have a school teacher, they have guys that bring them up to their grades. Matter of fact, they even have sex education. Well, Jesus Christ, I never had that when I played junior hockey. I went to the pool room to find out. But I don't know, you guys, wonder how I became a hockey player. I think I was about 15, 16. Dad worked on the railroad, He's always on the road. Just my mother and I in the house. I have 5 sitting girls sleeping or not there. So I was getting anxious to find out about, sex a bit. And of course, those days, parents never kind of told you anything. So, I got the guts to ask my mother something about sex, because I really didn't know how many times, you had to do it. So I asked my mother, and she says, hey, Mom. Of course, that was in French. You don't want me to talk French here. Anyway, je suis capable de parler français. I said, Mom, how many times you have to do, to have a baby? Oh, my mother, I'm a very shy person. She looked at me and she didn't know what to say. I said, yeah, tell me. And she says, 239 times. I said, and she walked right out of the kitchen into the bedroom and left me all by myself. I said, holy Christ. I says, you really got to be strong to do that. I says, I better become a hockey player. And then you're on 239, you've got to be a hockey player. Anyway, I guess maybe, I got so many things I could talk about here. Coming at me. I think maybe we should push it down to a question, because you guys know so much about me. And is there any question, just, 5-10 minutes?
Tell us about Glenn, tell us about Glenn Hall and how good he really was.
Well, talk about Glenn Hall. Glenn Hall, kind of a fellow that stuck to only 1 or 2 guys after the game. He didn't hang around with a lot of players, like, there was always cliques, 5 or 10 guys. He was always by himself or another guy. Glenn, I don't think we would have accomplished all we did if it would have been for him. Glenn was always the guy that with very few words, and he was to the point. I think he was one. Of course, there's always an argument. My friend David Dupuy wrote about Sawchuk, the greatest goaltender, but I think Glenn Hall's right there. If it's not equal, the better. One thing, the reason I say that is because Sawchuk played behind a lot of good clubs, a lot better club than Glenn Hall did. I don't think we had the great clubs till the 65, 66, and Glenn stopped a lot of rubber. And a lot of guys talked about the great Bobby Hall scoring many goals, but I think Glenn Hall's stopped a lot more goals than Bobby Hall scored. And I don't know why he wasted $5 on his T-bone steak, because he would bring it up before every game. He'd just go to the washroom and cough it up. I think we've become real good friends somehow. I was, being a defenseman, a little bit offensive. Goaltenders don't like you. But lately, he's finally realized that I guess I was pretty good. And he said so. And we've become very good friends. Okay, one over there.
Did he ever finish painting his barn?
Okay. You guys, you've heard about Glenn Hall's barn, right? Well, about 6 years ago, I think it was, I was on the Canada stamp, and they took us to different towns, and I ended up in Edmonton, and Glenn called me, and I would pick me up, and he lives about maybe 40, 50 miles outside Edmonton. And the thing that I wanted to see was this big red barn. Now you gotta understand, Glenn lives on a quarter section of land, which quarter section over there is about 240 acres, I think, or something like that. But he doesn't farm it himself. He, custom farms with somebody else. And first thing I had to ask him to take me, because I drove to his house, his son picked me up, drove to his house, and got in the house to come and show me the big barn. So he said, yeah, come on. I said, okay, let me get my clothes, we'll get in the car, we'll go. He said, no, you don't have to. I said, what do you mean? He said, come on, let's go outside. You guys went outside, it was just a big car garage. Yeah, and you know what? You could fit one horse in there. That's what it was. I couldn't believe it. No kidding, just a one-car garage. But the amazing thing, I went downstairs, and we started having a beer, and you won't believe what's down there, all the awards and all the things he's won in his basement. Unbelievable. I mean, I think he played so well for us, but I really think he played much better when he played St. Louis. And he should have played, the last few years, he should have wore a mask in Chicago, but he didn't. But finally, when he went to St. Louis, he started wearing a mask. And you know who put him onto it? Jacques Plante. Jacques Plante played with him. And Jacques was playing with a mask, so he was a proud guy, he wouldn't do it, but he used to wear a mask in practice, you couldn't beat him. But at the last few years in Chicago, goaltenders, when they don't wear a mask, what they do, they kind of look this way and get their head behind the defenseman so they don't get hit in the face. And he was starting to go like that, but once he got the mask on, he could really watch the puck. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering who were some of your favorite defense partners? Who did you like to play with?
Defense partner?
Yeah.
Well, I played with my friend Elmer Vasco for so many years. Elmer was, he was a stay-at-home type of guy, and where I'd be the guy taking the puck and, moving on. Elmer was the type of guy that, when you play hockey, somehow a lot of guys, let's say about 80, 90% of players, if there's a goal scorer, you're trying to figure out who to blame or who's to blame and stuff like that. And probably after the game, you go out and say, well, that son of a... there's always somebody, you know, a lot of players don't do that, but there are some. But Elmer's never complained about a mistake made by a player in front. He would never say anything bad like this. Elmer, too, we had something in common, that him and I, we were always on the road when this happened somehow. We're both born on the same day, December 11th. So we always celebrate and burn a few candles, especially in Montreal. Other defensemen I played with toward the end of my career, Pat Stapleton, Doug Jarrett, I broke them in. I would say Doug Jarrett probably could have been much better. He always went about 80%, that's all he wanted to go. Pat was great on when he first came with us. He told me, he said, hey, you got to get back and get that puck when they shoot it in. And he became, he started playing the point. He was very good and played very well for Team Canada, one of the stars. A lot of guys, you know, they keep talking about one guy, but I'll tell you, we had a lot of stars there that are not mentioned all the time. But they keep mentioning that one guy. But man, there was a lot of good stars. Stapleton played well. Oh, a lot of guys, goaltender. Yes. Okay, this one.
Okay, Ted Lindsay was one of the founders of the union.
Yes.
Carl Brewer and Doug Harvey.
Yes.
And they got shuffled about. The next day after Ted Lindsay was traded to Chicago. Were you there when he was traded to Chicago?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, hey, what's the deal? Gordie Howe became a nobody then without him.
Well, you can't say Gordie Howe became nothing.
Well, I'm saying Ted Lindsay made Gordie Howe.
Yeah. Well, I always liked Gordie Howe a little bit, you know.
But Ted, yeah.
Well, Ted, when he came to us, he didn't bring his family with him, and somehow he was involved in the forming of the union and stuff like that. It took a lot of pressure.
Who did he get traded for?
Johnny Wilson.
Who?
Johnny Wilson.
Yeah. Johnny Wilson, yeah. Little Johnny Wilson, yeah.
Well, Hall came in the same trade.
Oh, yeah.
Hall and
You see, it's hard for me to know everything you guys know. You know, I got to tell you a story about, somebody said they like my sweat, I look like, I don't know, one of you guys came up to me, mentioned a sweater, you know, the Indian had, and apparently when I first broke in, I was playing in Detroit, Gordie Howe was looking over and he nods Ted, and he says, hey, this beer ballot's going to be good. What are you talking about? I said, look, they put the sweater of his face on the sweater. But I get a quarter for each time they put it on, you know. Anyway, yes, you with the moves.
We hear a lot these days, especially when we watch the current hockey, about how they're matching up defense pairings to forward lines.
Yeah.
Was that something, you know, that you ever, like, okay, as soon as, like, for example, as soon as, you know, Bellaho's on, you've got to be on kind of deal, or was it more?
Not so much, because we only had 5 defensemen, and we only had, and we paired the 5th defenseman, lots of time didn't play. So, you know, there was 3 lines, and then 4 defensemen, so you always missed a thing, but sometime you would try it. I mean, it was hockey. Don't forget, it had 1 coach then. Now we got 4 or 5 coach. I think the worst thing that happened to me is when they started the game captain video, you know. So you can see me playing the day before. They can watch me how I would go in to get the puck, and man, they had you. This has been the greatest innovation with video and taping the guys. The way I played, the way I became good is that I was talking to somebody about how did I get to the level I got to. And there's probably guys that had more abilities than I had, but I was able to visualize and remember everything. I would look at a player, a new player, I just keep concentrating on him, and then all of a sudden I could see how he skate, how fast, what he'd do, what kind of shift he would have, and I could just remember that all the time. Then also, I could remember plays that I could do. Like I say, if I saw a play, if it didn't open, I could see another one. It didn't matter. I just kept seeing plays. And one of the things that I was fortunate to not get hurt so much is that one of the things that I did, I don't know if you've talked about that, a lot of players have talked to you about this, is that when I would be, say, resting for a game, before a game, or lots of time, I would try to visualize different situations that might happen to be, say for instance, a player would hit me, or say one example would be if I'm in front of net and I'm taking the guy out, and somehow he ends up on top of me, and we're on the ice and he's following me, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, now how would I fall? I could just see that in my, and I'd see my leg out there, and I said, uh-oh, if he falls on that thing, it breaks. How can I protect myself? If I move my leg this way, it would hinge. Well, I'll be on the bench. A month later, same thing happened. Boom. That's how I was able to survive lots of time. Falling into the board, different manners of doing it, and I kept thinking about all of these things. And my game was always having things in my mind that I could do. And that's how I somehow became good. Yes, sir.
Pierre, what was the greatest difference between playing for the Hawks as a, say, younger player and playing for the Leafs as a more mature veteran? What stood out in your mind between the two teams and organization?
Well, everybody knows I got traded for Jim Pappin, which is a good deal for Toronto. I was on my last leg, and Jim ended up probably scoring 200-300 goals for Chicago. But you got to remember, in those days, there was a lot of animosity between teams, players, especially Toronto. When I went, and also a different style. We had a wide open style. We had the type of players like Hall, Nikita, and Warren, these guys, where in Toronto was check, check, check. When I got there, the first friend I met was the youngest guy there was Mike Pilote, and the second one was Johnny Bauer. And after that, it was tough. I remember, and I don't know if I said that in the book, but I remember trying to make a pass to one guy. I would make a pass, and I was trying to jump into the open space, and he would pass behind me, go in and score a goal. Next time I could do the same thing, and he passed in front of me. So all of a sudden I realized that I was not a friend of theirs. It took quite a while. It was very hard to play with them. But they ended up in the playoff, and Chicago was out of the playoff. So that was the thing. But it was, to me, when I wasn't going to go to Toronto. I had my green papers. I had 2 children born there, and in the United States, and I was going to, I was offered a coaching job. I refused that. Tommy Evans says, well, first I asked him how much money he was going to pay me, and I said, can't live on that. Then I started thinking about, you're hard to be fired. That's not what I want to do. So when I came to Toronto, I got myself established there, and I've had a wonderful years in Canada, and I think it's the greatest country that anybody can live. Any more question? I guess, okay, one more, okay, right here.
Yeah, you just spoke about animosity between teams. In 1959, the Boston Bruins and New York Rangers played in Europe, 23 games in 26 days. And you were actually added with Bobby Hull, Ed Litzenberger, and Eric Nestorenko, were added to the Rangers lineup. How did that work? How did it?
Oh, okay.
And in the end, were you friends even with the other team?
Well, this is 1959, is it?
Yes.
59. What happened is, by the way, it's in the book. What happened is that there's an organizer in Europe, Switzerland, organized 28 games between Boston Bruins and New York Rangers, but they could not start the exhibition. They were exhibition games after the Stanley Cup, and they could not start till the Stanley Cup was over. So, of course, these days, New York and Boston were always out of the playoffs, so it was not a hard decision to make who to get. And we got beat out in the first round, and you got to understand that in New York, especially New York, all the guys lived in the park, and they would have to stay there an extra month. So some of the players just went back to Canada, so they need some replacement. So I had Muzz Patrick call me from New York, and would I come and play for the New York Rangers? And of course I said, well, yeah. I said, but who else would you ask? So he asked, I think it was Litzenberger, Bobby Hall, and I think Nesterenko, I'm not too sure. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. And we flew out of New York, and we landed in London, England, and man, that was a great trip. I lost 10 pounds on that trip. Boy, you just played hockey, went out, played hockey, and this is when, if you know how Bobby got named, well, Bobby played with us then, and that's when I think he started to fly. It was just hard to believe the difference from him that season and us playing these 28 games together. He was just flying, and he came back, and that's when he became the Golden Jet, I think. By the way, we got a big buck for that. We got $1,000 to play 28 games. Isn't that something? And I was afraid to send it. We got that in cash, $100 bills, and I was afraid to send those back home, so I sent 9 envelopes. I kept one of them. And 9 separate envelopes. I thought maybe, you know, how the heck can you get $1,000 back? So that's how small we were thinking their salaries were those days. Well, okay, one more, and I think.
Just wondering what you think of hockey today versus when you played. Is it better? Is it rougher? More violent? Is it more entertaining?
Well, it is to me. First of all, I don't know all the players. You know, I kind of pick the best players. I think if you're asking me that question, I could. If you asked me, say when I first started playing hockey, I would say, well, we're better than the Eddie Shore days. You know what I mean? We're skating faster. We got better equipment. We got this. Then, if you were to ask me after I retired, and all of a sudden they had expansion, which was a little different because I was able to play, you know, because of expansion. I remember playing against Minnesota. It was just, for me, just like playing, you know, the minor league, you know, just because it was so diluted. But I would say now the hockey players are so well conditioned, so well coached. Don't forget, they're coached from the time they're 5, 6, 7 years old. Just amazing. The power skate, the way they're trained, they're bigger. Salary, you know, I'm not mad about their salary. I didn't get the same kind of salary. I'm happy. There's only one person that I'm mad at. Really. You know what I'm mad at? My mother. She should have had me later in life. Okay, guys, I think it was great talking. First of all, I gotta say that I really got enlightened talking to you guys because I know Waxy, and he tells me he does research work on hockey, you know. But he's a friend of mine. I don't, you know, he goes one ear and the other. And also, I was disappointed about those 2 aces. They came to my house for 2 years writing the book. I fed them, gave them beer, coffee, water. Here's my shit house. And guess what? Did they wear a Chicago Blackhawks sweater yesterday? Whoa. Whoa. Waxy, I know you like the frogs. I'm a frog too. And look at this guy, the Sawchuck thing. He came to my house asking about Sawchuck when he was writing the Sawchuck book. Oh boy, come on. Okay, you're gonna change? Well, I'm leaving you. These two guys, I gotta tell you something. As a hockey player, just as one of you guys, just think of me, born in Penetanguishene. My dad worked at the paper mill. It didn't work. Got to be an engineer on the railroad. Only 4 or 5 days of work. We had 6 in our family. Dad says, I gotta get some food on the table. Moved our family 1944, 45 to Fort Erie, right? And I'm just like you guys, you know, I was lucky, I made it, but you guys are keeping this information that us guys have created. I think you gotta be complimented about this, because we can't let that information go to shit. We gotta keep it going. Okay, guys, keep researching, and that's great. Thank you very much.